Hey everyone, well, courtesy of Original Gamer Life, we have learnt about an MMO that never was. And actually, we've learnt a fair bit, as we've done a little bit of research, about Electronic Arts' history in the MMO genre. And I think you'll find it quite interesting today. But of course, we have to take a swipe. We have to take a swipe. We just can't help ourselves. Original Gamer Life, you guys might actually do it. You might actually do it. But you have a buzzword density on your website that is so high that I could barely sort of make it through. Now, on a stream by Brandalorian, who is involved in Original Gamer Life, and he was talking to the CEO and CMOs of Original Gamer Life. There was a fun little bombshell from Kim Salzer, who was an ex-director of product marketing at EA, and also an ex-VP of global brand at Activision. And it turns out EA had actually done a ton of work on a Harry Potter MMO. And, you know, this isn't the new MMO that obviously is not EA. This is like way back in the day. Big Harry Potter MMO. Now, Original Gamer Life, or as they style themselves, OG Life, because they are the real OG. They are because, you know, you've heard of games as a service. You've heard of software as a service. Well, they are a thriving as a service, social impact multiverse open to all gamers. We take not only one metaverse, but multiple to create a multiverse that takes you as the original gamer and your avatar on a social and wellness journey to better your own life here in reality and all the alternate realities where you game. You might be thinking, I'm just waiting for something else. Yes, at Original Gamer Life, we're aiming to bring in non-crypto gamers, the 3 billion gamers of the world. Basically, it's a crypto thing.
Yeah. If when in doubt, if anyone is full of buzzwords these days, it's about NFTs and or crypto.
Yeah.
You could sniff it out of the drop of a hat, like, oh man.
You know, I'm kind of fully there thinking, oh, blockchain, awesome, crypto, awesome. Like I'm totally down for the basics of it all.
Good concepts,
right?
Yes.
And the concepts and all of that. I think it's just that thing, as Jack Dorsey was recently tweeting about, whenever it just feels like all the big money interests have got a handle of it. It's like, yeah, well, now Web3 is not for us. It's for venture capitalists to cash out of in X amount of years.
Yeah.
So now that we've done our funny little swipe at the source of today's fun video, it's time to actually talk about Electronic Arts, and this shit gets interesting. So, there's a beta build of a Harry Potter MMO floating around.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping someone can dig it up and show us what it was like, because like this was 2001 to 2003.
Yeah.
So this was like really early days Harry Potter. This would have been, Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets stuff. So I have no idea what it could possibly look like or what the gameplay would be like, but I really hope we see it someday.
Absolutely.
I hope someone leaks it.
So this was apparently a combined online-offline experience. And now we don't know if this means offline gameplay, but Kim actually mentioned that they would have had physical rewards to deliver to players. Kids, as Kim says. Yeah. Now, that is something Toys, was it Toys to Life or whatever?
Yeah, with
Skylanders
and stuff, yeah, which was much later.
I wish I could actually just go in and work out why Skylanders just ended up imploding. But at least for a time, that was super popular, super successful. Interesting that EA here could have actually been onto that trend way back.
Yeah, I believe the framing of this was going to be like prizes and ribbons to tie them into like their experience in game. So probably something to do with like the houses of Hogwarts. You're the Hufflepuff will send you a yellow ribbon or whatever it was, or green or yellow, whatever it was. Probably something like that, which seems to me like very definitely focused on kids, because I think that was the whole target audience for the whole franchise at the time.
I mean, imagine if there was just a few, a few achievements in a WoW expansion or an FF expansion. You complete the achievement and then you get like a coupon code. Maybe they'll send you a reward, like a little, enamel pin or something, and maybe they'll do it at cost. Maybe you just pay for the shipping or something.
That would be
like
expensive.
Interesting little things that could even work for an adult.
Yeah, that would be expensive, but that would be really, really cool because I'm thinking like, obviously EA wouldn't have had this at the time. I still don't think they really have focused on that, but obviously like to use Square Enix example, if we're talking about FF14, they have a really, really big merch division.
Oh yeah.
So they could like, they have all of the backbone to physically actually literally do that. So there is probably a world where EA could have handled this and built like a full like physical merchandising out of it as well.
Yeah, it could have been an innovative MMO. Now this apparently was killed because they didn't think the franchise had the shelf life.
They thought it was a 1 or 2 year thing.
It's just a hit movie. That's it.
It's just a hit movie, and then another hit movie, and then another hit movie, and then another one, and then some movies that were less hits but still did extremely well.
Yeah, and books. I think those books sold okay.
Yep.
So, maybe it's a bit like, Will Smith. He passed up on The Matrix to do Wild West. Whoops.
Yep.
It worked out okay for everyone in the end. But, ouch, EA, ouch.
Yeah.
They could have, I don't think it would have dethroned a Warcraft because Warcraft's like a pretty different group of people. Yeah. But it could have done really, really well.
That's the thing that's interesting. This was 2001 to 2003. This is before World of Warcraft was out. World of Warcraft had a very, very, very strong, it had very strong like in older people because of the age of the franchise and the material, but also it did really well with kids.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people who, I don't remember what I would have been when I first played it. I'd have been maybe 11, 12, something like that.
We were small.
Yeah, so would I have played a Harry Potter MMO instead and never played World of Warcraft? Assuming it was good, there is a non-zero chance. So imagine like, basically there's an alternate universe where Harry Potter was a big MMO instead of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And EA just went, nah, we're okay.
Thankfully, I would have been okay. Because I was the lame kid who thought, well, I like Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings is better.
I mean, you're right, but still.
Yeah, I was right. I still think that. I think maybe I was a total fucking cockhead about it.
Honestly,
that's what it's like being a kid.
Honestly, there's literally a kid in that I remember in like whatever age we were when the movies came out who had the same conversations and the same arguments over which was better, even though they're clearly two completely different things.
Yeah, I'm tying it into EA. That's something that again happened with the Old Republic. Yep. A lot of people I knew were sort of saying, okay, I really enjoy World of Warcraft, but frankly, whenever the Star Wars MMO comes out, I'm done. Yep. I'm moving over there. Didn't really happen like that. Yep. So there's that. Now, big misfire from EA. Whoops. There's also some evidence in the Matrix Online client code. There's an enum included in, basically an enum included Harry Potter as a session type, which sort of implies that there's something here with this Harry Potter game that was maybe connected to Sony Online Entertainment.
Yeah, but yeah, it was weird because it was, obviously Matrix Online was run by Sony Online Entertainment.
Yes.
And there's a whole load of stuff in it that was pointing to Harry Potter. HPO was one acronym that was used in like just client code. So there was clearly the connection to Sony Online Entertainment servers could possibly at one point have been to Harry Potter or something or other. But that gets a bit confusing because obviously Sony Online Entertainment is not EA. But then you look at EA's sort of MMO time around that time and you go, is this another project? Or was EA kind of like, just collaborating with them because they didn't have experience in MMOs? Possibly, it's hard to know, but I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, and to get into, well, things, and we actually found out today about an MMO that neither of us knew about. There's a lot to get into with EA's history of MMOs. So EA killed it, obviously, and they were going through some changes. In the early 2000s, they didn't think Harry Potter had the shelf life. It's hard to say what these changes are, since, Kim's years there. 2001, 2003 seems to be kind of static for them publicly, but Kim was sort of insinuating there's changes and things going on.
Yeah, that was one of the reason she basically gave for it being cancelled was they were going through some changes and they didn't think it had the shelf life. And I tried to find some sort of changes that looked important to me, but unless it's like staffing changes that weren't publicized, I didn't look quite that far into it. But like they didn't really buy anything or anything. It was just like they were kind of kind of set in stone after like the late 90s. So
Well, I want to know because my beloved Freelancer 2 was cancelled at some point, and I still need answers. Anyway, to continue with the story, between 2001 and 3, Harry Potter franchise was a big global phenomenon. The first 2 movies were out. The first one was the highest grossing movie of 2001, second highest grossing of all time.
Titanic, I think, at that time.
Yeah, that's insane. The second was the second highest grossing of 2002, which was behind Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. They were basically happy to go deep into the Harry Potter single-player games, maybe just thinking, we'll cash in these movies. Again, this is the era where, what are we doing? We're cashing in movies, even for Lord of the Rings. I mean, most of us played The Two Towers and the Return of the King video game. I played it in the PS2. So that's kind of what they were doing. Maybe if they were a bit more future thinking, some of these MMO projects would have been getting off the ground a little bit.
That's the thing, because if you think about like what they did for single player games, if they'd combined their single player games like mechanically and design wise into an MMO, it would have worked really well. Because I don't think the Philosopher's Stone game was all that well received critically, but it was like among fans, it was like this is pretty okay, this is good, and it sold like crazy. It sold well over 1 million, I think.
Wasn't it Chamber of Secrets that was pseudo open world?
I believe it was Chamber of Secrets started that pseudo open world stuff. Then after that, Quidditch World Cup came out, which was a pretty functional Quidditch game. And I'm just thinking, like, if that was a mini game in the MMO with its old like tournament stuff as well, that would have been really sick.
Go on, Quidditch Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
Infinite money. Harry Potter cards. Let's go.
Oh my god.
So, odd stuff there. Odd stuff. EA missing out. And they have a strange history with the MMORPG genre that we really want to get into today. I think it's fascinating. So, Ultima Online, it was a pretty small game. It honestly didn't mean much to the industry. It didn't really change anything. So EA were right. But no, what happened is the devs, Origin, they pushed extremely hard. They had they had to fight to get Ultima Online, as was uncovered in your research. They had to fight to get Ultima Online greenlit. I think you said 3 pitches.
Yeah, it took to the 3rd pitch, yeah.
Yeah, to the 3rd pitch. So they finally get it, but they ran out of money.
Yep.
So they ran out of money at beta. And back then, you couldn't just download a video game. Ridiculous. I mean, maybe if you somehow had the friggin' university's connection.
Yeah.
But a home user was not really downloading big games. So the way to get the beta was physical disc. They couldn't afford to do this. So the story goes. So they charged $5 for a physical disc for the beta. They had 50,000 signups. So just bam, 250k revenue. Obviously, a decent wee bit more now because of inflation. This perhaps made EA realize something because EA, you were saying they were projecting 30,000 sales.
I believe that. I'm not super sure if I remember that correctly, but they were not projecting very, very much for Ultima Online, and then it released and sold, over 1 million, ultimately millions at the end, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe there's something in this MMO business.
Yeah,
maybe, just maybe.
Of course, what did EA want? They just wanted more Ultimas.
Yeah, they were just like, I think it was kind of interesting. I didn't go into it too in depth here, but they kind of, after the beta, they kind of swapped and focused on Ultima Online pretty hard to the point where they put Ultima 9 on pause and pulled a load of the team off Ultima 9 onto Ultima Online, blasting the team from 8 people to like 50 or something around that. And then none of them having experience at online games, turning development that was like really smooth and nice and in beta into a chaotic nightmare. But it still ultimately, came out okay because Ultima Online, never played it myself, but it owned by most accounts.
By most accounts, and certainly, at the very least, it was extremely influential to the industry. Now, this is another interesting thing. So Westwood, I mean, come on, Command and Conquer. Westwood, awesome stuff. Westwood, actually, for EA, for Electronic Arts, were making Earth and Beyond. We only found this out because we were looking into the history of Jonathan Haidt, who is now basically the you could say the head honcho of the Warcraft, not World of Warcraft, but the Warcraft franchise with his new job. And we just noticed he was at EA as a design guy in the early 2000s, late 90s. And of course, then when Westwood came on, he ended up being involved with them. So it was quite funny to the very start of current World of Warcraft, because people think of Ian Hazacostas as the main WoW guy. Yeah. No, it's John Haidt. I mean, Ian's obviously extremely involved, but whatever. It's just interesting that maybe, I'm not saying he did, but maybe Jonathan Haidt crossed paths with the final game of Westwood Studios, an MMORPG, at the very end of his time at Electronic Arts. Who knows? We looked it up. You can play it right now on emulation. It's available. It actually looks like a really banging little game. You will know I love the game Freelancer. It's what Chris Roberts did before he took his sabbatical from the games industry. We went on to produce movies like the Nicolas Cage movie, Lord of War.
Cool.
So, yeah, there you go. Chris Roberts lore. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting because, of course, Freelancer, also a EA game. So there's just this thing of me liking space games and feeling very betrayed by EA right now. Especially since they also went and murdered friggin' Mass Effect on me. Bastards.
The game, man, it's weird. It's like so much of their lore and their history, the more people find out about EA, the more it is, oh, you killed more games than we thought you had, renowned game killer and studio killer of the industry.
Shocked.
How do you keep finding ways to kill games retroactively? Have you done this?
Yeah, so this game, Earth and Beyond, which notably was not an MMORPG, it was a MMORP Galaxy, even bigger, but they killed that in 2004. Of course, the other, and then obviously Westwood is retired as its own studio. I believe it actually gets kind of folded into another thing, and then eventually you get DICE LA out of some big friggin' mix of stories.
It's the EA special of we're closing your studio and we'll keep some of your devs.
Yeah, we are all getting thrown in the scrambler.
Yep.
So they bought Mythic in 2006, which obviously got them access to Warhammer Online and, of course, Dark Age of Camelot. Their deep commitment to the online gaming market worldwide didn't pan out great, though, because obviously we know that with that Warhammer MMO, it went down in 2013, but has since been resurrected by the community, which is a very cool thing. And, of course, Dark Age of Camelot, for a lot of people, there hasn't been much to scratch that itch since. That's a type of MMO that kind of did die out as World of Warcraft really provided the new template for what an MMO would be. But for the other MMO projects, well, you've got SWTOR, of course. Pretty decent launch. I was there at launch. My take on the launch was very explosive. People were very excited. Then the end game didn't really work out so well for people.
Yeah.
I believe some of that stuff is in a pretty interesting spot today, where if you just want to hop into that game, do loads of the story content, and actually do that across multiple alts, they have really, really nice systems in place for playing multiple characters. It's called the Legacy system. So that is, that's the one that's doing pretty decently. It's still getting updates and content, so that's all good. Then, of course, there is Funcom's game, The Secret Worlds, which, I mean, what a cool theme, right? It's all the conspiracies and stuff. I thought it was a really cool theme for the game. I believe Lovecraftian elements as well. That was by Funcom, published by Electronic Arts. Obviously, that failed. Then we have got 38 Studios. That is the studio founded by baseball star Kurt Schilling. There's some sort of joke about his surname being Schilling. Schilling's a currency, and it being financial mismanagement that ruined the company. But basically, the whole company ended up imploding. Rhode Island got involved because there was lots of government subsidies and things like that going on.
Yeah, it was
that's where the current, I would say, lead of World of Warcraft's narrative direction, Steve Denuser, he comes from 38 Studios.
Oh, yes,
EverQuest before that, but I think he worked with your man Salvatore on a bunch of the stuff for Kingdoms of Amalur, which, funny enough, just got an expansion.
So it did.
But yeah, so Kingdoms of Amalur, obviously not an MMO, but it's hard to know exactly because I imagine their plans did shift and change. The overall intent of that studio was to make the next big MMO universe.
Yeah, they were effectively going. I think it was World of Warcraft that Schilling actually liked and played a lot.
Yeah.
So they wanted to make a World of Warcraft killer, or at least a competitor or a companion piece to do the same thing basically. But you're saying the Rhode Island involvement, because the figure that's written down here, which is it sold 1.2 million but needed 3 million to break even, that was actually publicly said by the governor of Rhode Island, which is a very weird story overall. But God.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's interesting whenever just deals like that and stuff end up happening.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So basically, EA have always been dancing in and around MMOs.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tor has been more of a thumbs up situation, but broadly speaking, it has been a messy thing for them.
Yeah.
And it's just really funny that if they had have shown some of that daring leadership, they could have had a big Harry Potter MMO. And it's interesting because like what's another MMO that was popping up in the early 2000s at the same time as a major film franchise was going on? Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah.
Which obviously had
Sony, wasn't it?
yeah, it was SOE.
Yep.
That's obviously ended up having its issues because one day they decided to make the Jedi be dime a dozen.
Yeah.
But man, that game is seriously a cool game. I never played it, but the more I've looked into it, very interesting. And to me, it's just that thing. EA could have had that for Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And they didn't. Now, obviously, if you want Harry Potter MMO, well, there is the Wizarding World, which itself has had some fun lately because J.K. Rowling has become more of a controversial figure, shall we say. Yep, J.K. Rowling goes near Twitter, and then you just look at your Twitter feed, you look at the what's happening thing, and you're like, I want peace and quiet. Stop shoving drama in me, algorithm.
Yeah, it must feel like pretty empowering for J.K. Rowling to just know, like, I could just tweet and just literally take millions out of Warner Brothers' bank account at any time I want to.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Or even just, haha, I captured the mind of a generation.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of done it again, but, you know, dark timeline style or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever. I don't really know how she sort of thinks about her current position herself.
Nope.
But yeah, so look, for about 10 years, there was humongous Harry Potter, right? Remember Pottermore and all of those things coming up. Obviously, it took a little bit of a lull when the movies ended, but there's Fantastic Beasts, which are doing decently enough. But the second one was a critical flop.
Yeah, the third one is...
I believe they did a play as The Cursed Child, and I think it had some like time travel-y stuff that didn't go down particularly well. With some people, just from like a plot perspective. Then obviously J.K. Rowling, she I suppose sort of walked into the ongoing trans discourse, I suppose. Certainly she jumped into that with her personal view, which suffice to say is not a view held by everyone, is it?
It is a divisive view indeed.
Yes. So that has, of course, been a little bit of an issue for any of the business people here, because obviously the business people, maybe they personally give a shit about any of this, but you know, the corporations obviously don't give a shit about anything J.K. Rowling says materially. All they want is some squeaky clean PR so they can rake in money. So from that perspective, it must be a real pain in the ass for them.
Almost certainly. It's like I say, all J.K. Rowling has to do is just wake up and decide to tweet, and then Warner Brothers have a problem on their hands. And they're like, oh, fuck, what do we do with this? How do we respond? How do we...
Yeah,
yeah.
Imagine if you were publishing, say, the Graham Linehan MMORPG.
Oh, that'd be fun.
that would be a really fun experience, actually. So there's been some interesting things. They've kind of rebranded it away from Harry Potter.
Yeah,
towards Wizarding World, because they're really trying to make it. I suppose they just want to give it that big lasting thing. I guess it's almost like, sure, you've got Star Wars, but what if you could have the Star Wars Clone Wars setting and the original setting and the Old Republic setting, and you can really build out the whole thing.
Yeah,
so I imagine they just really want to do that.
I guess a good way to put it is that like Star Wars is Wizarding World, whereas imagine a world where the Star Wars franchise was called the Luke Skywalker franchise or something. You'd be like, well, shit, we're connected to this character forever. We can't tell any stories outside of the timeline or outside of the setting. Shit. So they've moved towards it, and it's like really apparent as well. It's like there's basically, you almost never see the word Harry Potter in any of the marketing in like certain places, because there's even like a 20th anniversary TV show that was like talking about it all, and it was just always Wizarding World, Wizarding World, Wizarding World. And I was like, I can see the presenters trying hard not to say Harry Potter and saying Wizarding World instead. So it feels like I don't know if people are completely on board with it or not, but it's certainly obviously they're doing it for a very obvious reason.
Yeah. So basically that's kind of the story. This is where it wraps up to. EA completely missed the boat. And they could have had an absolute banger and probably all the money in the universe in their hands. And hey, it was Westwood. It was Westwood. No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was Westwood.
What the fuck am I talking about?
I don't know.
It's all broken.
Making shit up.
Making shit up. Just there we go. There we go. Alternative facts. Alternative facts.
Indeed.
EA could have been there when the movies were fully explosive, and they probably could have made a lot of money.
They
didn't.
we are operating under the assumption that whichever developers were involved in this were actually good enough at making an MMO.
Yes.
That's obviously it could have been released and been shit and no one cared, but operating under the assumption that it was at least pretty good, maybe not World of Warcraft good, but close, then you could just see, you know, the almost like the butterfly effect of how different the MMO landscape would be today if they had just went. These are the two of the highest grossing movies of all time, and we're making a load of single player games. Should we? Well, the MMO's got a beta build. Should we just sort of finish that and release it? It's like, nah.
Gotta be real too. You know what? From a game design space, there's lots of things in the Warcraft universe that are cool from a game design space. Yeah. I actually think the whole wizarding world, as we're now calling it, yeah, you got some cool spells. Definitely. You don't have a bunch of melee combat. Yeah. You could probably do some pretty interesting design things. Yeah. So, you know, hopefully the new one's good. And that's basically it for this story. I think talking about games history is fun. And I mean, it's the fact that it's just been a bit of a podcast and EA having a rumbly time. And I think that's a fun enough thing. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And have a wonderful day. Hope we've entertained you for this 28 odd minutes. We'll see you later.